Hi, Stan here again. Welcome to Chapter 12, the last chapter of the Sussex Coast road trip. The end of the A259 takes us to Chichester Harbour, where we find sandy beaches, a Roman palace, a 400-year-old ferry, and thousands of birds. Come on along for the last ride. In 43 AD, the Roman Emperor Claudius sent an army to conquer England. They landed at Novi Megas, which is present-day Chichester. Within a few years, they had subdued most of England. They also constructed roads. Staines Street runs 58 miles from here to Londinium, so that supplies and troops could easily be moved from the south coast. After the Romans left, the town fell into ruin, but was eventually rebuilt by the Saxons and followed them by the Normans. Chichester still has parts of the original Roman walls, as well as a great Norman cathedral and many other historical buildings. It's a fascinating place to spend a day, but unfortunately it's not part of our road. To get to Chichester Harbour, we have to take the city bypass and head south at Stockbridge. Chichester Harbour has had human habitation for over 6,000 years. The Romans used it as a landing point when they conquered England. Saxons and Normans have used the ports for trade and smuggling for centuries. With the advent of rail transport, the port's use faded and the harbour silted up. In 1964, Chichester Harbour was designated as an area of outstanding natural beauty. Most of the harbour is now a nature reserve, which has prevented a lot of development. Although chartered as a port, Chichester was 2 miles from Dell Quay, where most of the shipping, both imports and exports, took place. Today, all that remains is a dozen houses, a 16th century pub, and the marina. It's a lovely spot to stop for a meal and to enjoy the views of the harbour and the passing boats. Following the A286 to the coast takes us to the two villages of East and West Wittering. Inhabited since Saxon times, they are hugely popular with visitors because of the unobstructed miles of sandy, shallow beach, which is great for surfing. Having turned the corner at Seltzyville, we are now looking at the waters of the Solent and not the Channel. As we follow the beach as it turns toward Chichester Harbour, we come to an area called the Hinge at East Head Spit. Gotta love these English names. Just around the corner, we come to the National Trust-owned East Head. This nature reserve is home to sand dunes, rare lizards, and salt marshes. If we get tired of the secluded sandy beaches, we can take the boardwalk to the middle of the enchanted landscape. The area attracts more than surfers and day trippers. A number of celebrities, including Kate Winslet, Keith Richards, and Michael Bell, own homes here, finding peace away from the cities. Working our way back toward Chichester, we find Itchenor, which is a pretty village at the eastern shores of the harbour. Believed to have been established by the Romans, it was active during Saxon and Norman times. Almost wiped out by the Black Death, it managed to survive and become a shipping port. Because of the beauty and location, the London well-to-do, who liked to sail, started building summer homes here in the late 19th century. Today, over 40% of the houses are people's second homes. This has changed the character of the village. In the 1970s, the village store, post office, and primary school closed. The conservancy for the Chichester Harbour Reserve is run from Itchenor. They are responsible for managing the coexistence of wildlife and human recreation. For the rambler who wants a different perspective on the harbour, the Conservancy maintains a dozen walking trails of various lengths. The Itchenor Ferry has been running for over 400 years. It's not the same boat. It currently runs in the summer on demand from the village of Bosham, a mile further inland. This ferry ride is part of one of the walks. There are longer harbor boat tours available for those of us who do not have access to a boat. Like Dell Quay, Fishbourne was a busy port for Chichester, but as the estuary silted up and the railway proved a cheaper means of transport, Fishbourne village lost its importance. As early as 1805, locals have been finding pieces of Roman ruins, but in the 1960s, excavations of the largest Roman palace in England brought back fame to Fishbourne. The Roman mansion covers an area larger than Buckingham Palace. Every time they excavated some of the ruins, they found even more. Building of the palace started soon after the Roman occupation in the 1st century. It was extended over the next several hundred years and finally abandoned around 270 AD after a major fire. Some of the palace will never be recovered as is under the A27. The property has been opened to the public and not only shows the beauty of the floor mosaics, but contains a museum that describes the workings of the huge complex. When excavating the Roman ruins, archaeologists discovered thousands of artifacts that predate the Romans, from the Iron Age or even earlier. Flint tools found here could be over 6,000 years old. Back again on the A259 for another mile, and at the roundabout, we head for Bosham. Bosham has a long and interesting history. The Romans used it as a major port and built homes and other buildings here. Around 1800, part of the largest Roman statue built in England was found near here. It is believed that it was the head of Emperor Trajan, erected by Hadrian at the mouth of the harbour. After years in the Bishop of Chichester's garden, it was moved to the city's museum, where it is now on display. Saxon times saw much activity, with a small monastery recorded here in the 7th century, and the church being built in the 9th century, probably on top of Roman structures. This was replaced a couple hundred years later with a larger one. This 1,000-year-old Saxon church is still in use today. There is a legend that a Danish raiding party stole the tenor bell from the church bell tower. As they were leaving, the other bells in the church started to chime, and the tenor bell answered, destroying the Danish ship. On some quiet days, when the church bells ring, the bell in the harbor still answers. Another legend has King Canute and his drowned daughter buried under the floor of the church. There's also a story that King Harold was buried here after dying at the Battle of Hastings. At the time of writing of the Domesday Book, Bosham was described as one of the wealthiest villages in England. Bosham was made notable again by the Sky documentary series, Killer in My Village. An unsolved murder happened in the village in 2013 when Valerie Graves, a 55-year-old artist, was found bludgeoned to death. She was house-sitting for a friend in Smuggler's Lane. It's a very pretty village today, attracting artists, photographers, cyclists, sailors, and walkers. You get a real feel of history exploring the village and browsing the craft shops. There are a few more smaller villages and the military base on Thorney Island that make up the west side of the harbour. Most of these are part of the nature reserve, and some places can only be accessed by footpaths. And that, folks, is the end of the road. That is our trip along the Channel coast on the A259 from Rye to Chichester Harbour. For those who live here, I hope I have encouraged you to explore your county and look at it in a new light. Some of us have visited the strip of land many times over the years and have enjoyed the sights and delights. Hopefully for those who have never been here, I have given you some insight into what to expect if you do visit. From the high green South Downs to endless miles of pebble beaches to busy seaside resorts, We keep coming back, looking for things old and looking for things new. If you enjoyed this video, please press the like and share this with your friends. Our next series is a road trip in Cyprus. Press subscribe to be notified when that one comes out. Bye for now. I hope you enjoyed the ride.